Well, hello everyone. This is John Byrne with Poets and Quants. You are watching Center Court. This session deals with career growth via an MBA. We have four of the world's best schools with four of the world's best MBA experiences in the house to talk about what you can do with an MBA, what value it has, what kind of jobs it opens the doors to, and what the experience really is like. Is it as transformative as people say it is? What is the ROI on the degree? And I think you're going to really enjoy the session. So let me introduce each of our panelists. From UCLA Anderson, we have Phil Hahn, the Assistant Dean and Director of the Parker Career Management Center, which is one of the best career management centers in the business. From Berkeley Haas, we have Hoy Ng, the Executive Director of Coaching and Programming for Haas Career Management. So we'll get some coaching in here. And from UT Texas, Austin McCombs, we have Sarah Nathan, who's Managing Director of MBA Career Education and Coaching. And from Carnegie Mellon University's Tepper School of Business, we have Stephen Rajas, Executive Director of Masters Career Center. Welcome, everybody. So all of you are involved in making sure that students land the job that they most want. How hard is that in today's uncertain economy to make a reality? Phil?
All right. Well, hello everyone, to everyone listening out there and prospective MBA students. We're excited to be talking with you, I'm sure, on behalf of all the schools representing here, and of course from UCLA Anderson as well. So, John, you start off with a good one, right? How hard it is to get the job of your dreams. Um, I think we never tell any of our students that it's ever easy to find a job, right? I think an important thing to consider is that regardless of your background, regardless of which school you're going to, the process is still important. And going through the process in the right way, in the way that is hopefully promoted and recommended by the career centers represented here, I think is an important thing to be thinking about as you consider, the job search process. But I think today's uncertain times definitely have put up some challenges across certain industries in terms of the hiring landscape. I think the overall economy is definitely something that we all of us have to be thinking about, and what kind of opportunities are available, across the different sectors that I think different schools here maybe have certain strengths in. So overall, I believe that the job search process, is always a challenge. It's always a process that you have to follow. But I think depending on whether it's what industry or what function that you're targeting, I think will make a big difference on whether that is a little bit more maybe easier to make into, or whether there might be some headwinds depending on the sector that you're targeting. So here at UCLA Anderson, here being on the West Coast, one of the key things that we have, one of the key industries that we are part of is the technology industry. And we all know that there are a lot of changes going on in the technology industry, both in terms of the recent post-COVID restructuring that a lot of companies have gone through, as well as the new sort of technologies and innovations that have become very prominent recently. And that definitely has caused some interesting shifts in the hiring landscape there. So that's an example of how, for us here at UCLA Anderson, maybe a little bit similar to perhaps even Haas,
Yeah.
have certain sector-specific things that I know that our students are going through in the current economic landscape.
Phil, you used a word that I think is really important, and the word is process. And Hoy, I wonder if you might lead us through sort of the journey that you take incoming MBA students through, so that at the end of that career journey, or the MBA experience at
Yeah.
least, they're starting off on the right foot in the right place.
Yeah. So our process starts with meeting with the students. We try to meet every student in their first year, within the first half semester that we have. And we want to get them grounded in terms of, if you're exploring, if you're trying to make a pivots, how many pivots are you trying to make? So we're looking, and to Phil's point of view, we always look at what is going on in the economy and what is the strategy that we have. In the past, like technology has an unprecedented run of 20 plus years of just growth constantly. Even during the recessions, they were still growing a little bit. That's come to an end in the last couple of years, right? Back then, you can make these big pivots. In today's world, hiring managers are de-risking their hires. So the big pivots, right? The market's flooded with unemployed tech folks. You're competing with experience. So a lot of managers can de-risk. But you can still make pivots. You just need to make smaller pivots. You will eventually get to where you want to go. So we work with students on taking into account what is going on with economics and list what are your interests and what is the strategies that we can employ. How do we use your internship to close gaps to make you a stronger candidate when you graduate, right? So we work with students. We try to figure out what's their value system, what is their core things. We try to help them develop their criteria. What is their criteria for the next roles that they're looking for with their companies? We are one of our values at Haas is confidence without attitude, which is really looking at evidence. And sometimes that we always ask our students, well, what's the evidence that you like this? When you're young, you have a lot of experience. You're always looking, well, I think I might like this. And we're like, great. We start to separate what is true, factually no, because you've experienced it. I want managers like this. I want work environments like this. I want my job to have 80% of these type of skills being used, these capabilities, right? So we kind of take all that out. And again, helping students look at their own evidence about themselves. We have this idea of learning about yourself, right? So you can be more confident in presenting yourself to others, and also confidence in what you're pursuing. We also know that your first job out of your MBA program, it probably isn't going to be your final job, isn't going to be your final role or final industry. So we also try to bring in a little bit of perspective, like, hey, for today and for now, what is it that you're looking for? What is it that's getting your energy up? And then so we try to get them down to a couple of hypotheses, right? We encourage people to have no more than 3 hypotheses, as long as they're connected in some way, even better, less, because as everyone knows, the MBA student is inundated with academics, social events, all the things that we compete with in careers. And you can perform better if you can narrow down your hypothesis to 1 or 2, maybe 3 at the most. So we do a lot of what we call intake meetings. We get to learn about the students. The students get to learn about us and the services we provide. We're a coaching program, so we actually actively try to help students find the power in themselves to take the steps forward. We encourage a lot of relationship-based searching, which is networking, super important. I'm sure that every school here really relies on the network. Learn about the job, right? Learn about the companies, learn about what problems they're facing. How can you solve it? How can you take your prior experiences to help bring a new point of view? So one of the things we lean on too is also innovation and trying to bring in creative ideas. We also have this phrase that we love. It's part of our defining principles, question the status quo. And so how can you take, if you're making a pivot from one industry, take what you've learned from there and bring it to another industry, help them question their own status quo, right? So we have two pathways. We have kind of like the structured pathways for banking and finance and consulting. The companies have their set timelines. It's a process. We run them through them. There's a lot of networking events we have at the school that students get to learn from each other and also from professionals and from companies themselves, and they're on that path. A lot of the technology hiring tends to be, and the changes over the years, tends to be much more real time when they decide they need to come in and recruit. So we're constantly preparing our students with their stories, their application materials, and again, always in the background, constantly be networking and getting those insights so you can perform well in the interviews. So we kind of guide them on that journey. Of course, we have workshops and everything. We do mock interviews. We do mock networking nights. We have mixers to really expand the network. And over the last few years, given the state of the economy, really leaning heavily into networking as a primary tool to get connected with hiring managers, get your face out there, but also to improve your performance in the interview process itself.
Yeah, that's great. Now, Sarah, when I talk to MBA students, there are two things that they're most surprised about when they enter an MBA program. One is how rigorous the core curriculum is in the amount of work that's thrown at them, which forces them to prioritize that work. But the other thing is how quickly recruiters come on campus and start info sessions. And I wonder if you might talk a little bit about that, because it's such a big surprise and even a shock that while you're in the core, the most rigorous part of the program, in the evenings and the afternoons, you're going to meet with company representatives who are interested in basically touching base with you for potential internships the following summer.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny you mentioned that. We have today, I am here in Austin. Our first year students are having midterms. And so we were serving them snacks and donuts and cookies because there was a lot of very busy looking people running around the building. So they're definitely feeling it. And to your point, we've already had lots of employers who are coming in. This is where some of my experience helps as well. I'm a McCombs MBA alum myself. I worked in industry for a number of years before coming back here, and I actually met the recruiter who hired me during orientation before classes start. And I think that that's something that's been happening for a while, but certainly as the market has gotten competitive, we see that happening a lot. Especially in certain industries. We were talking about some of the technology companies coming in really early. Consulting and banking have always come in really early. And so, I think we've heard a little bit about sort of networking and the importance, but also the importance of knowing yourself and what you're interested in. And I think the students that I see coming in and really feeling overwhelmed are those that aren't really quite sure what they want to do and they want to kind of try everything. And it's tempting because there's so many cool things to do. There's so many opportunities. There's so many fellows programs and clubs, and it's football is obviously really big, not to mention getting a job and careers and which industry you want to go into. There's so much to do. And so I think doing a lot of that, personal soul searching, whether it's, family and friends or informational interviews sort of over the summer leading up to it. So you can at least have, a few things that you want to focus on. And being able to say, hey, I know I really want to do maybe consulting, maybe tech, but I don't actually have to go to that banking info session or something like that. Being able to know yourself really can help because there is so much going on. And so we want to give students the opportunity to explore, but we also want to help them kind of find what they're really interested in and what they can prioritize. I think that really can help because otherwise, yeah, and then of course a little bit of sugar and treats along the way to give you stamina to keep going doesn't hurt either.
Actually, Sarah's advice is really important. I mean, I think in retrospect, I have found that the most successful MBA students are those who have a real direction. They're not explorers in the sense that they have no idea about what they want to do. If you enter an MBA program and you have at least a couple of ideas, but not much more, you're probably much more likely to have a positive outcome than if you have no idea at all. And I think that even in the admissions process, there is filtering for people who don't have a clue about what they want to do with the MBA. So getting on track right away, as soon as you possibly can, I think increases the odds of your success. Stephen, would you agree?
Absolutely. I've been doing this for quite some time, over 20 years here at Tepper, and the runway to explore is shorter and shorter and shorter, right? We used to onboard our students in August in base camp, and they often weren't interviewing until January. This was a long time ago, right? So that window to explore that existed, even up to some extent pre-COVID, has closed. So what we've done, and probably my colleagues here have also done, is back it up into the spring and summer. So we start meeting with the students in the summer, and they're still juggling, wrapping up their jobs, moving, doing all that sort of thing. So it's a lot for them, but we try to give them that exploration time in the summer and give them an overview of what the fall is going to bring. You've got to have your resume done before you come to our orientation. You'll have a meeting with your coach talk about those couple streams we were talking about earlier, and get that plan together so that when you hit the ground in September, you could have sort of been a sponge in the past. Now you need to be very proactive and targeted with what you're doing, or you can get overwhelmed and, go to that banking or consulting presentation when that's really maybe not what you should be doing based on your plan. So yeah, what's happened in essence is we've given up our summer, all of us students, career services people and recruiters, to accommodate the new timeline.
And before we started the session, Hoyt at Berkeley Haas was telling us how TikTok was already reaching out during the summer before school even started for recruiting over 40 MBA interns for this coming summer. So it starts fast and quick, and the more you know about what you want to do, or the more likely path that you will take, I think the better off you're going to be. Stephen, what do employers say that they like most about the Tepper MBAs they hire?
Sure. So we're celebrating our 75th anniversary this year at the Tepper School, the founding of the business school. And so, there's been some reflection on that here. And we're one of the founders of management science, right? Solving business problems through data analysis and analytical methods and so forth. So while that's still our hallmark, we've worked hard in the past decade or so to also focus on leadership, integration of technology, that more well-rounded MBA student. And I think we've been successful in recasting our student body as, yes, they're analytically smart, technically astute, but they're also learning things like leadership and empathy, which is going to be critically important moving ahead into the future to be a business leader. So we've been working on that quite a bit, and that all wraps up into the Intelligent Future logo you see here. That takes business, technology, analytics, but it's human-driven to make smart decisions. So that's what we're working on, and I think we've moved the needle with recruiters to that direction.
Sir, what do employers like most about McCombs MBAs?
Yeah, sure. So, summer is such a great time to talk to all of our employers, and we ask them this question. We really want to know, what's the feedback? What are you hearing? What do you love? What can we tell our coaches so that our coaches who are coaching the students really know, how to help our students, and to make sure that they're understanding what employers are looking for. And I think the thing we hear over and over again are, collaboration, teamwork, roll up your sleeves, a willingness to really dig in. And I think the area that I'm most proud of our students is around communication, because we really hear a lot, yes, we know that they have strong technical skills, but the people who really can make a difference are those who can take those insights, who can take that, financial analysis and then communicate it. And we really feel that the McCombs students can excel in that area. And communication used to mean sort of presenting. Now I think it means so many different things, right? It means being able to show up, share insights, not be, afraid to share your opinion, in whether it's a casual setting or a formal setting. And so I think we hear those things over and over again. And, it's just, there's a lot of things I'm proud of our students for, but I think that's really the one that stands out for me, that we hear, a lot from our employers.
Wait, what do employers say about the Haas MBA?
Yeah, well, over the last few years, the emphasis in the school has been around innovation, the creativity that comes with it, plus inclusion and of course sustainability. So a lot of our employers really value the Haas entrepreneurial spirit that we have. Obviously, we're in Silicon Valley, where just being here, it's going to rub off on you with all the different ideas that are flowing, all the students that are trying startups while they're here, even just dabbling in it. If it's not immediately after they graduate, it's something they want to plan in the future. So a lot of our students bring that entrepreneurial spirit, which, roll your sleeves up and get it done, bias for action, but also the creativity and how are we looking at things. A lot of our 4 defining principles really plays into our students' attitudes. We have student always, so they're always learning, always trying to stay abreast of what's going on in the world that we have today. Of course, changes so fast that it's good to have that skill to constantly be learning. Questioning the status quo, as I mentioned earlier, is something that they love because, again, the heart of innovation comes there. And in addition to that, we have the this idea of sustainability. We just launched this year our first class for our dual degree with the College of Natural Resources around sustainability and an MBA together. So even though a lot of our students may not be going directly in sustainability, they bring that sustainability mindset into the work that they do. So our leaders, our future leaders, will be sustainability mindset in addition to all the work we've done with inclusion. Our student population has a really high EQ value, and which is really an important thing, especially when you're dealing with diversity, equity, and inclusion. How do we bring all that in? How do we lead through those values? It's, again, something that's been very important that we've been emphasizing in the school, and then employers are really appreciating coming out of the program.
Right. Phil, how would you tackle that question?
Oh, you're on mute, I think, Phil.
Oh.
I'm sorry about that. So one of the things that our school has focused on over the last few years is that UCLA Anderson creates transformative leaders. So the keyword being transformative, in a sense that it's that the students that come to Anderson will be transformed during their time here at Anderson. But then, of course, once they get out to the world, into the community, into the business world, that they will also create transformation. And I think one of the key ways to do that, one of the key things that we emphasize is, one, of course, analytical rigor in terms of all of our courses, all of our academic curriculum is very analytically focused. So that's a very big part of it. Second, diversity of mindset, not just diversity of demographics and other things, but I think Los Angeles being such a metropolitan, global, diverse city brings people from all walks of life, all industries. So we encourage students to take advantage of that, take advantage of all the different opportunities to learn, all the different opportunities to get exposure to various different industries. So that diversity of mindset, I think, is an important part of what our UCLA Anderson students are able to get. And then lastly, the word that we probably use the most is share success. And that, speaks to some of the other qualities that other schools have mentioned about collaboration and being team player, but really the ability to share the success that you are experiencing yourself. So a lot of our students are encouraged to participate in various different activities to give back to the community within Anderson, whether as peer coaches, whether as club leaders, and that is a very big part of our students' lives. So that idea of sharing success, that if we all want to succeed together, I think is an important part. So our employers appreciate that part, is that our students, our graduates who come out of Anderson, you often are focused on, really making the success of the organization effective than just themselves or driving just on their own. So I think those are some of the key things that UCLA Anderson encourages our students. And then, of course, our employers talk to us about those qualities.
So the name of our session is Career Growth by an MBA. And I want to drill down a little bit on that with each of you because, we're not talking about getting even the job that you want. We're talking about getting a career that's fulfilling, that's meaningful, that provides an endless level of professional growth, that is a job that you want to go to every single day and that you love. And it feeds you in ways that other jobs can't. And I'm wondering how the MBA really truly contributes to that kind of career growth and ensuring that you can achieve it. Because I think, if you can get that kind of professional fulfillment in your life, you're going to have a happy life. Hoyt, what's your perspective on that?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things. There's I don't know if anybody remembers, but there's something called happenstance learning theory. And it's actually about how careers are made. And it also ties into learning agility. And what studies have shown that learning agility, and it's something we teach at the school, that people that have learning agility tend to lead 3 times happier lives, and I think it was like 8 times more success in their career. Because I think the definition of a career has changed, right? We used to be, you picked a career, you were in it for 20 years, 30 years, whatever, and you were there, right? Now that we see careers are more fluid, people are finding things. So I actually one of the things we try to communicate is to our students is that you're going to have many careers that's going to serve your purpose. So what is the purpose you want to do? How do you want to contribute to the world? Is it creating more sustainable ways? Is it being more inclusive? You have a core purpose, and we help students find what that is, right? Sometimes they find it within the program. Sometimes they find it 2 years after the program. So we actually support our alumni and especially our recent graduates because we know that the 2 years in the MBA program isn't it. It's the starting point. It's not the end of the journey. It's the starting point. And hopefully through the MBA experience, you're learning all these different skills like EQ skills, IQ skills, hard skills, soft skills. All that combined lets you become agile in your career, right? Learning for new opportunities that pop up. Because sometimes the world changes so much, you can't actually predict how things will shape out, what's going to come next. We don't know. We're seeing the bits of AI, how it might reshape the world. And through that reshaping, you might have new ideas, new meanings that you want, but you're equipped to deal with those waves of change because you've got this MBA program, because you've learned how to learn. Really, one of the essences I think about the MBA program is you're learning how to learn. And hopefully through the MBA program, one of the questions I always ask students when they exit is like, how have you been changed by the experience? Right? How do you see the world differently through this experience? And it's those two things, that all that combination lets you navigate a really difficult role. I got my MBA really early and combined with an engineering background, it really helped me to learn and navigate the world, understand the world. And that's sort of what we can bring in to our students through the professors and the career coaches and so forth, and amongst each other, and of course the alumni. So I think the MBA in terms of that is helping students really get centered on what's meaningful and what their values are, and understand that as they grow and it can change. That's why access to alumni coaching is important. And then all the aspects of staying agile, continuous learning, staying abreast, and again, banking on those core skills that you got from the programming and constantly updating your skills, you'll eventually find your path and your true meaning along the way, and multiple meanings. Again, we all live long lifetimes now. We live 80 years now on average. When you think about that, that's what, from age 20, it could be a lot of 10-year careers, could be 3 20-year careers, right? So I think redefining also what does a long-term career and meaningful life look like for you.
So true. Sarah, do you have a view on how the MBA contributes to real career growth?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's a lot of overlap in how we think about it. We think about sort of 4 areas that students we introduce. I think it's during orientation early on. How should you be thinking about this? And it's, what do you love to do? So whether it's, skills that you love applying or topics that you love, what are you good at doing? And then also, what can you get paid for? So is there any overlap with those? And then the last one is, what does the world need? So, looking out at the market, looking at the world, seeing where you could make an impact, also understanding, again, what motivates you, because that's part of having a long career. If you can get paid for doing something and the world needs it, but you don't have that internal motivation, then you're probably not going to be as sustainable as if you find something where you can really find that, sense of satisfaction, that sense of, I'm doing something that I know that I'm good at, that I'm contributing, all of those kind of combine together to create longevity. And then, again, knowing that it's going to change. So none of those things that I just mentioned are tied to an industry or a role or a company. They can be applied across the board. And so if you're thinking about that all the time, then as you grow, as you change, as you learn, as you want new challenges, because a lot of the times, the reason you change careers isn't because something made you, it's because you did it and you were good at it and now you're ready for something new. And still having that lens of, again, what do I love? What am I good at? What does the world need? And then, what can I actually make a living off of, is a nice lens of thinking about, how you can chart. And then you have all these great technical skills and communication skills you learned along the way so that you can be successful at it.
Right. Now, Stephen, I wonder, in addition to the tangible benefits of an MBA, which are what people kind of expect, you might expect a better job, you might expect increased earnings. But what about the intangible benefits? What are the things that people may not expect that they get out of your MBA program?
It's a great question. I think speaking specifically to the MBA, they have more options to pivot over time if they're managing their career that way. They're coming to us at a pivot point. You know, they know they don't want to continue on the path they were on. So they've recognized that sort of pivot as they go into industries, perhaps like consulting or banking, that have large intakes, but few people stay and rise to the top of those organizations. They need to think about an exit strategy moving on. So what I've seen over time working with alumni, like others have mentioned here, we do quite a bit with our alums. We see those people have that agility because whether you're starting your own business or moving to a different industry, the core functions you've learned in a business program, marketing, operations, finance, strategy apply, right? Whether it's a nonprofit world, whatever have you. So to me, I've seen the intangible might be the flexibility you have throughout your career with building a network, building expertise to be able to take that and move, strategically. Now there's a lot more to that than what I just said. You need to be somewhat planful as to how you move ahead. But to me, one of the intangibles is how organizations are run. And that's a skill that's needed everywhere, whether you're starting your own business or making a pivot to an industry that just speaks to you more than something when you were 25, right?
True. Phil, what's your view of the intangible benefits of an MBA?
Yeah, of course. I think one of the obvious ones that I think all of our schools will talk about is the network that you build while you're here at each one of our institutions. We often talk about how the 2 years or maybe, give or take a year that you spend here, you're building lifelong friends, lifelong partners, lifelong colleagues. And I think that is one of the most, important benefits that you can gain from any one of our top institutions, from that perspective. And that intangibility could be social, making friends, all the way to, of course, career defining. We always hear from alumni that talk about, oh, I found that next job because I was talking to one of my classmates about it just on a social setting. And then, they introduced me to this new opportunity. So I think that is a benefit that I think a lot of that students or prospects should be considering in any of the schools that they're looking for. And part of it is not that this is not a transactional thing. It's not necessarily where I go to this school and they're going to give me this and, I paid this tuition and I get this, but much more along the lines of an investment of I'm investing in the time, I'm investing in the people, I'm investing in the experience. And I think that overall becomes that intangible benefit that you'll really the rest of your career, if not longer, in order to, gain as everything you can out of that experience overall. So we always encourage our students, hey, don't think of this experience as a transaction. Think of it really as an investment that you're putting into both your life, your career, your friendships, and everything along those lines. So I think that's really one of the key intangible benefits that we encourage all of our students, all the MBA candidates that are listening, to be thinking about when you think about business school programs.
That's great. Now, people in higher education are more often than not referring to the full-time residential 2-year MBA as a mature product, meaning they don't expect much growth from it. And part of the reason is all the alternatives out there, be they online MBA degrees, accelerated 1-year MBA degrees, part-time programs, which all of you have, executive MBA programs, which all of you have. But I wonder if you can make the case for the 2-year full-time residential degree experience, because, I happen to think, to me, it's a no-brainer. To me, it's a wonderful investment you make in yourself. To me, you need 2 years for an MBA to be what it promises to be, which is truly transformative. So, Hoyt, let's start with you. Make the case for the 2-year full-time residential MBA, even at the expense of your part-time program.
Yeah. I think one of the best things around the full-time MBA program is it's immersive. right? You are in it, you're in an environment. And when we talk a lot about like the technical skills you're going to pick up, you're going to be able to pick up technical skills online. There's so many ways in today's world to pick up technical skills. That's not the challenge. The challenge is really how do you expose yourself to actual, diversity of thought, diversity of cultures, backgrounds, and stuff. And how do you learn to work with all that? That's an in-person thing. That's environment, right? And going to a 2-year program, you learn through the environment, you learn through your colleagues, you learn through the debates you're having in class, right? If you're in a part-time program, you have debates in the class, but I get it. You got a job in the morning, you got to get home, you got to go work, right?
True.
So the amount of social interaction you're having with your diverse student body, the debates you can have outside in the courtyard, in the coffee rooms, right? Late at night, at bar of the night week, whatever social activity is going on, discussing that, encouraging people to bring different ideas, getting exposed to how people work even more differently, think differently, especially with an international population. That is something that you cannot really replicate in any of the part-time programs because you need to be immersed in it. You need to be fully baked in. It's your constant surroundings. And so there's that aspect of it. The other aspect of it, I would say, because it's transformative, is it's transformative because you're out of your old environment. If you're still going to work, you still have cues in the environment telling you, oh, behave this way, do this way, right? You're in a new place, you're immersive. You can be whoever you want to be. No one else knows you there. You're not near your family, you're not near your social circles, your friends, right? You're there. So that's part of the transformation. You get to experiment with different aspects of yourself, of your identity and so forth to say, hey, what does it feel like to be a little bit more aggressive, a little bit more, thoughtful, whatever that is. And that's really shaped by your environment. So I think from a 2-year program, it's being immersed in it 24/7, having this opportunity to be outside of your regular environment so that you can play around with your own identities, play around with how you see yourself. That's really the aspect of what a 2-year program can provide versus some of the other part-time programs. Yeah.
And you know what? I love the idea of the spontaneous, unexpected collision with
Yes.
someone, be it in a hallway, being on a class trip, being in a club. Those collisions with classmates or faculty members can literally change your life, along with the really deep bonding you get by going through a grueling core curriculum that serves as something of a boot camp that you
Yeah.
will survive and work together to survive and thrive in, and creates memories for a last time. Sir, you make the case for the 2-year full-time residential MBA.
Yeah, I do love our part-time programs. I love all of our programs. They're different,
Sure.
and I think, people go into them for different reasons. And it's a lot of the things that you guys have mentioned. So in the full-time program, you have so much more time, right? It's so much time. The part-time program, you're working and you're getting a salary, and there's plenty of reasons to want to maintain a salary. But I think when you are dedicating yourself full-time, you have time for all of these student orgs. You have time for all of these extra experiences, all of the experiential learning, all of the group study. And, our part-time students do that too. I was talking with some Houston students last weekend that had gotten together to study late into the night. And so there's clearly that craving for, the togetherness and the time. For all of our students. And I think for the full-time students, you just have so much more of that by virtue of the way the program is structured and the fact that you don't have that job. And so all of that time that you now are no longer in a job is dedicated to growth. It's dedicated to expanding, learning, growing relationships, trying new things. And it's wonderful. So there's definitely reasons people go into each one. But all that extra time that you give up by not working is definitely utilized in the full-time program.
Yeah. I don't know if this is the right metaphor, but I'm gonna throw it out there anyway, okay? Fast food gets your belly filled up very quickly, and it can be very satisfying. And if you don't have enough time to sit down to a gourmet meal that may take 3 hours and be an experience you will remember for the rest of your life, that's understandable. But if you can go to the gourmet meal and have an incredible experience in a first-class restaurant, it's no comparison to McDonald's. And I think to some degree, there are many quick and easy online programs or the part-time programs, which, look, many people can't quit their jobs for financial reasons. Many people can't invest 2 full years of their life to go to the gourmet meal educational experience. And so, yes, these different programs exist for different needs and purposes. But really, the premium product on the shelf is the 2-year residential full-time MBA, and it's incredibly rewarding and life-changing. And I don't think there's anything else like it, really. Now, Stephen, you have a great online MBA program. It is a very high-touch program. It's 3 years in length, in fact, and is very different from most other online MBA programs. It's really a hybrid program.
Mhm.
But still, the 2-year full-time experience, you have to admit, is something special.
I would agree. I think, my colleagues have expressed all the things I would say about the advantage of a 2-year program, and John, you have as well. The piece too that I think we need to keep looking at is even with the economic ups and downs, so many top companies continue to have internship programs for a reason. And that's because they're looking for that student who is in this sort of a situation where they're taking this 2-year immersive experience. And as long as our top banks and consulting and healthcare and tech firms still continue to do that recruit once, hire twice process, I think the future of the full-time MBA is secure, but there's also absolutely a place for all these other flavors that we have on the market now.
Sure.
You mentioned our 3-year part-time hybrid program, and we try to bring in as many elements of the full-time program as we can reasonably do to that, including bringing them into main campus several times a year for activities, for in-person bonding, for things you can't do so well at a distance. And we're kind of replicating a lot of what you get in a 2-year program, but it's still not that same thing. So I think the market has spoken, at least for now. And I think the future of the 2-year MBA program, there's always going to be a place for it, and we'll see how that evolves over time.
And Stephen, you mentioned something we hadn't even discussed earlier about the 2-year program, and that is the opportunity and the value of an internship. In many cases, some of the best MBA jobs that are on the market are not available to you if you didn't intern with the firm. This is often true in investment banking, it's often true in consulting, and it's certainly true in some of the real onesie, twosie recruiting situations in PE or hedge funds and wealth management. They want to peek at you. They want to see you in person. They want to touch you, and you're going to learn a lot from that summer internship, as well as earn some good cash as well during that time. And if you're in a part-time program, there's no internship. If you're an online program, there's no internship. And like I said, those internships are often converted into full-time job offers. So they're very valuable. And they're really largely only available to the 2-year full-time residential MBA. Phil, you have any final thoughts on the value of the 2-year program?
I think my colleagues here have definitely covered everything, including the internship that Stephen mentioned as well. So I think that 2-year, the transformation that students often experience in those 2 years by being immersed in the experience, by going through everything with your colleagues and doing an internship where you get to try out something new that either you decide to continue on or maybe you change your mind after that because you got to see it from the inside, I think is really important. And the other thing that I would just add is that 2 years allows you to both gain, meaning during your first year, you're learning and you're gaining. But then oftentimes during our second year, I'm sure all other panelists can attest to this, they also give, they mentor the first years. They are part of peer coaching programs and club leadership. And there's, I think, so much to be gained from that experience as well. That 2-year full-time MBAs usually take the lead in. I know other programs can also be involved in those, but I do know that the full-time MBA typically are the most involved in those types of opportunities to contribute to the community. So I do think that that's another piece of those that want to do that, that want to provide that mentorship, that want to both give in addition to get through this experience. I think the 2-year gives you that opportunity to do so in really an environment with peers, which I think is very unique.
Yeah. So, if you can do it, if you can do those 2 years, know that it's well worth it, and know that it will be an experience that you'll never forget for the rest of your life. It's that meaningful. Now, I want to ask each of you, we'll start with you, Phil, what advice you have for a prospective MBA who's trying to find the right program. What should they be doing right now?
I do want to emphasize what was brought up earlier of trying to get a little bit of a better sense of yourself and what you might want. I do think that the 2-year MBA becomes that much more effective and that much more valuable when you do come in with some direction. It doesn't mean that you have that one thing that you want for sure, but at least the direction and having taken into account who you are, what you value, what you're good at, what you're interested in. Those things that were mentioned earlier, I think will really make the application process probably more effective. And then, of course, making the choice for the MBA and which school that you might want to go to. I think that much more, utilizing that wisdom, I think will be that much more effective. So my advice is, start to get to know yourself. If you don't, at a deeper level, really, and I think introspectively, I think will be an important part in making their decision to pursue an MBA.
Good advice, Sarah. Your advice?
Yeah, I would say, really the same thing. And then sort of how to put that into action is, we hear from current students or prospective students say, hey, can you help me? Can you put me in touch with this person? Or, I think I'm interested in talking to this alum, which, we really want to connect students with alums. But I would also say that, a lot of times those people would really rather talk to the prospective. They'd rather talk to the current student than to, a staff member. And being able to reach out and say, hey, I'm thinking about going to a program, or I'm considering this program, or I got into these programs, I'd really love to, talk to you about it, is really an inducement for a lot of people. It's easy to get people to, be willing to talk to you at that point. And so I think that, starting to do that outreach will help in that networking that you're going to be doing for the next 2 years. But B, getting started using that, like, hey, I'm a prospective student, or I'm a future student. Would you mind if I, if I talk to you and, ask you some questions about my journey? Now is the perfect time to do that, because everything Phil said, I totally agree with. And, in terms of putting that into action, using this time is just, it's a really great time to do it.
Stephen, your counsel to a prospective MBA student.
Sure. Great advice given thus far, Sarah. Phil hit the nail on the head as far as I'm concerned. The conversation I would have with a prospective student would be to really take a look at, you're going to be well set up for a successful career if you would attend any of the 4 schools represented here today. But there are cultural nuances, perhaps. There are other things that come into play. Asking yourself questions like, what sort of environments have I been successful in the past? Where have I been unsuccessful? Whether it's a large environment, a small environment, a medium size. Having that perspective and knowledge of yourself is helpful. What are the culture touchstones that are important to you, and how's that represented? And that's going to take some time to really explore the schools that you're interested in. I often use a dating analogy at this point in the conversation where, you want to find that you have things in common and there's compatibility there, but there's still, that sort of drive to be more than you are. And you really should visit campus too. I think that's critical wherever you go. And most admissions departments, all of ours, I'm sure, are ready to help refer you to alumni or to second years or first years who can help answer those questions. So I would just say, keep an open mind, but really know yourself, and don't be afraid to ask tough questions and make the best decision that you can for you.
That's great. Hoyt, you get the last say.
Oh, well, I agree with what everyone else said. Really want to double down on visit the campus. The way you feel culture is by visiting the campus. You feel it. You can hear all the stories you want, but to be immersed in it again, to have that actual physical experience of what it's like to be on the campus is super important. Knowing yourself, all that stuff is great. The one thing I'm always asking is, why do you want an MBA? Getting really clear on that. Like some people say, I want to change jobs. Great. There are a lot less expensive ways to change jobs, right? So what is it? I mean, there are some roles that you have to have an MBA, like as we mentioned earlier, it's a pipeline to certain roles. But beyond those roles, really thinking about what do I want to get out of that MBA? Again, it has to be more than just changing a job, because there are ways of doing that. It has to be more than just picking up pure skills. It has to be more than that, because you can, again, I come from the learning development world. You can do that in so many different ways. So what is it that you really want from the MBA? How do you think it's going to serve your career in the future? Again, long term. So I think that is one aspect I'm always asking students or prospective students, what is it that you really want from it? Getting deep on that, understanding that it's going to help you really then figure out what is the best program for me, because you can look at the networks, you look at the connections, you can look at what the emphasis are, what are the different opportunities there. And the other thing I would say for students is to, that kind of self-reflection piece, understand how you learn best. To really ask, how do I know how I learn? How do I learn best? And from that, you can really help figure out which program is going to work best for you, what style is going to best work for you, and so forth.
That's great. Let me thank each and every one of you for participating tonight. It was a really great session. Hoyt at Berkeley Haas, Phil at UCLA Anderson, Sarah at Texas McCombs, and of course, Stephen at Carnegie Mellon's Tepper School of Business. I want to say this to all of you out there as well. I hope you not only learned a lot about each of these incredible MBA experiences, I hope you also felt and heard the passion and the love and the devotion that each of these ambassadors for their schools has. You got to know that if people believe that deeply in what they're doing, that's a place you want to be. Hey, thanks for watching. This is Career Growth via an MBA, our Center Court session, and I'm John Byrne with Poets and Quants.